This is Theodore at Lies of the Devil. Go to liesofthedevil.com. We're at the front line of spiritual warfare. I'm sitting here trying to do work, and it popped up that Rolling Stones has a new music video out called 2,000 Light Years from Home. It's an old song, but they just released their Satanic Majesties, I believe is what it's called, CD album. And I actually wrote about that. Go to liesofthedevil.com and look up Rolling Stones in the search. And I wrote about this 2-3 months ago, something like that. Anyway, for the debut of the Satanic Majesties CD album, they put out this new lyric video, and I'm going to show you just how, I mean, these people are out of their minds, okay? They are luciferians, they are Satanists, okay? Satan at the Tower of Babel, Nimrod and Semiramis, they wanted to become gods, so they created the pagan religion. And people worship Nimrod and Semiramis as gods, and that transferred over into the Mayans and the pharaohs in Egypt, and so on and so forth, up until now, present day, the musicians and the Hollywood stars, they think that they're gods, okay? And people worship them because they're idols. They're idols in people's eyes. Anyway, so let's just take this clip by clip, and I'll break it down for you all. Oops. So what you see there, it's here, okay? Is life is like a huge maze, okay? That it's just it's all symmetrical. The world is full of just a stream of conscience, and it's all one big maze. And if you actually look at, hopefully it shows my mouse. If you look at, if you really look at it, they're like pyramids. You can't see, but like on the top left, you see that circle. Just move down, and it's actually a pyramid. And then on top of that is another pyramid, and a pyramid, and it's all about alchemy. Alchemy is the obsession with numbers, and that and they do this. It's an obsession with nature. Okay, they worship the creation more than the creator, and so they'll worship pyramids, and they'll worship geometrical figures, and they'll worship numbers, okay? And God warns us, don't do that, okay? Astrology, people that believe in astrology and have their horoscopes written, the whole 9 yards. Anyway, my battery's going to die on my laptop, so I got to go real quick. So that's what it's all about, the Fibonacci sequence. And in fact, the more people look into science and the more they look into mathematics, the more they'll find God. But they don't want to find God. They want to find majesty, and they want to be worshipped like a god. They have demons that influence their spirit, their soul, and they take a bunch of drugs, and they think that, anyway, they're just worshiping the creation more than the creator. So here you have the Yoga, and I'm going to show you that it all started with the Beatles, okay? The yoga and all of this mystical Hinduism, Eastern religion, it really started with the Beatles. People knew about it, but when the Beatles came out, they really pushed for it, and that's why you have all this Eastern stuff all over the place, because people worship the Beatles, and the Beatles basically told people how to function, what new religions that they should be dabbling in. And so that Yogan I'm going to show you here is the Yogan master that was for the Beatles. Now, I'm not sure if that's the exact one. I'm not the exact guy. I don't think it is. I think they probably just took a picture real quick so that they could put this video together. But did you see him holding the 666 sign? Okay, he was holding the 666 sign, and then his forehead, the third eye they call it, the eye of Horus, opens up. And it opens up to the sun, and that's the thing. They worship the sun, okay? The eye of Horus, worshiping the sun, that type of thing. It's loud. Okay, you see that little moth? That is a genie. And it's going to go into Aladdin and magic carpet rides and stuff like that. But that little monarch programming, okay, that little butterfly that was floating across, that's a genie. And they think that during King Solomon's time that genies and all that stuff were real, and that magic carpets were actually real, okay? And I'm going to show you that here in a little bit, but I got to get going because the battery is really about to die, so this isn't going to be that great of a video. See, right there you see the pyramids. I'm not sure if that's Copernicus, okay, down at the bottom, talking about the stars, and here we go. This is another one. The little demons whispering in that man's ear, telling him, giving him more knowledge, right? His brain opens up, and now he's thinking about the world in a big perspective, right? See, that's the whole thing. That's what the trick is, that Satan gives you guys knowledge. Here's the UFOs, and then here's the Aladdin riding on a magic carpet. Now we're going to go into the old music video for the Rolling Stones, and it's all about doing yoga poses and like reaching up into like a UFO, the light that comes down, Lucifer, the light bearer. So there he reaches up to the line, and then here he does like this weird like ritual dance type thing, almost looks like a yoga pose, but then the camera cuts away before it actually shows him doing the rest of his dance. So what I'm going to say is that this transcendental meditation that they were going through, that's what he was doing, a transcendental meditation, almost like a ritual dance to his inner thoughts, his demons that he speaks to. And so I've got to get going. Baby, can you actually plug this in? I didn't even think about it. Now I don't have to rush, because I can just put the battery in. But anyway, what he was doing there was a ritualistic dance, and it all ties in with transcendental meditation. And transcendental meditation, that's why God says that when you meditate on God's word. Otherwise, it opens yourself up to demonic spirits. And these people, when they sit in calmness and they go, and they try to think of like, just a blank universe, just a blank slate of consciousness, then their mind releases all this dopamine and all these chemicals. Your neurons start firing off all this, and you actually get into a psychedelic state of mind. And a lot of times these people will take drugs as they try to clear out their consciousness doing this meditation, and it opens them up to hardcore darkness, hardcore evil, devils, okay? That's why you had that guy with the two devils whispering in his ear. See, this is the big secret these people don't tell you about. They think that they're talking with God. No, they're talking with Satan and his demons and ghosts. Okay? So let's go right into this article here. The Beatles Bible, not quite as popular as Jesus. Maharishi, actually, let's click back a little bit. This man here, did the Beatles introduce yoga to the Western world? This, I'm going to show you a picture, but if you look here to the right, the bottom right, he's hanging out with the Beatles, and that guy's name is Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and he was big into yoga and Eastern mysticism and stuff like that. So right here, while Harrison studied in Bombay, Boyd heard of Maharishi Yogi, the founder of Transcendental Meditation (TM). Mahasha Prasad Varma wanted to make meditation easy to understand and practical. In 1955, he wrote a book, The Science of Being and the Art of Living, and began teaching TM in 1958. At this point, after John Lennon accused Maharishi of molesting Mia Farrow, the Beatles fell out of their former master. The allegations were unproven and no charges were filed. Instead, caused by the Beatles' use of LSD and other drugs in ashram, was part of their falling out with the yoga guy. George Harrison was only member of the Beatles to later make amends with Maharishi. However, the Beatles had been profoundly influenced by their time with yoga. Much of the music on the White Album was inspired by Yogi's words and their experience with transcendental meditation. And if you remember correctly, Aleister Crowley, during this time, as they're introducing Eastern religions, Aleister Crowley is setting up the Church of Satan, well, basically the foundation of the Church of Satan, and influencing the Beatles and all these different musicians on the more extreme part of the Eastern mysticism of this transcendental meditation type stuff that they were doing. He was then saying he was 666, the beast, okay, and talking about how you all live your life, do what thou wilt. That is the whole of the law, okay? Be as selfish as you want. That's where true happiness comes from. That's what they thought, okay? That's what they were being taught. Here's Colmac Outpatient Recovery Centers talking about using yoga as a form of helping people get rid of, drug abuse and whatnot. TM, which is meditation practice, has been shown to increase production of neurochemicals associated with happiness and fulfillment. And neurotransmitter reduces increase in these neurotransmitters reduces autonomic arousal and anxiety, decreasing the need for drugs and alcohol. So essentially, it's like a replacement for the drugs. Your brain will actually produce the dopamine that you would get in, I don't know, drug or cocaine or whatever, and instead of you feeding your brain the chemicals to release those molecules and whatnot, just sitting in a blank state of mind in this meditation pose or whatever actually creates that stuff automatically. Okay, and I always say it. I always tell people, if the mind can be destroyed, Satan. Once the mind is destroyed, the soul is much easier. Okay, that's what Satan does. It's all manipulating your soul. Look at the last documentary we did on what is the soul. I explained what that is and why you have to be very careful what you actually feed your eyes and whatnot. So here's this Maharishi Yogi guy. Do I get a... Okay. He was an Indian guru who first met the Beatles in 1967. They became fascinated by his techniques of transcendental meditation, and in 1968 visited his spiritual training camp in India. He was born in 1917 in Raipur, India. He studied physics at Allahabad University, and in around 1939 became a disciple of Swami Brahmananda Saraswati, who in 1941 was the spiritual leader of the Indian city of Yatir. Anyway, that's that guy's history, okay? And this is where the Aladdin and the magic carpet tie in. These people, they're like Oprah Winfrey. They believe, and Paul Young of the Shack, and all these people that promote the Shack and whatnot. They believe that God has multiple storylines in history, and these golden threads, as Oprah Winfrey likes to talk about, they all connect together into the bigger Godhead. It's the same thing with the Star Wars documentary. Go look up Star Wars: The Last Jedi documentary. People love that. You know what I mean? People that watch a Star Wars film have no idea that it's actually teaching them a religion, what these people think. Okay, so the good and the bad all work together to the bigger Godhead, and that's what these people... they take all these different fables, all these different storylines, and they mix them together and say, we're aliens ourselves, and that we can create things just like the aliens, and whatever. And that was part of the reason why, part of the visuals of Mick Jagger reaching up to the light, right? Okay. So back to this. The origins of the history of the magical flying carpet. It all came from a Galland manuscript, the oldest manuscript, which contains the first 282 stories. And I guess it all started with King Solomon. Okay, so years later, the alchemist perfected his... talking about legendary Queen Sheba, had a royal alchemist who managed to make a small town rug hover above the ground. Years later, the alchemist perfected his skill when he discovered that the trick lay in the carpet's dyeing rather than its spinning process. When the queen heard of this good news, she had a magic carpet made and sent to King Solomon as a token of her love. Okay? So these alchemists, they're just out of their mind. I mean, we met one as we were traveling. They actually had a pot farm, okay, a drug farm, and it was all about spiritual healing. And we'll release it in a documentary. But he was an alchemist, and they believed that chemicals, the study of chemicals and the use of those chemicals can actually heighten people's awareness and their spiritual awakening. Okay, and so that's what alchemy is all about. And they will they'll lie, they make up fables. They'll say that, like, when I was meditating I met an alien and that alien told me about the existence of the universe, and they'll write it down as if it's gospel. Okay, and then the Gnostics, which are no different than the alchemists, they'll sit there and they will try to merge those fables, okay, those stories, into the actual Bible. That's what Paul Young did. He took a bunch of these elements of Eastern mysticism and the Hawaii religion, and he took all of those stories and he merged them in with the Shack. Watch the Shack documentary, Witchcraft and Demon Doctrine Exposed. Okay, so a lot of these people that are in the music industry, a lot of these, you know, big elitists and whatnot, they want to be worshipped as gods, okay, and that they have a higher spiritual awakening, and that we need to go to them for knowledge. Anyway, so this is what the whole thing is about. And that 2,000 light years away from home, that was basically Mick Jagger. He got busted for drugs, and he went to jail, and he wrote that song while he was in jail. And he's basically talking about how, you know, him being sober is like 2,000 light years away from his actual home of just being a drug addict and transcendental meditation and all the worldly stuff that he's into. Okay, and you know, so that's what that song is about. Okay, this video is long enough, 16 minutes. God bless. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. John 8:32, ye shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free.